Thank you. Good evening. We're here tonight to look at more budgets, and we're going to start out with Town Clerk's office. Susan Galvin, our Town Clerk, is here tonight. We also have from the Board of Health, Carolyn Kinsella, and we have our Treasurer Collector, Jim McAuliffe, and eventually we'll see Bob Bushway, our new assessor. And we'll start out with Susan, and I don't know if you've met everybody. We have some new faces at this table. Chuck Garimbacus is new to the board, the committee. Mike Mahal.
Yes.
Mike Mahalchik, Lee Michael McLean, and Julia Getman, you know.
Yes.
And Phil Matthews, and Jean Eckner, and Jim Potter, and Betty White.
Hello.
You know the rest of us.
Thank you for having me.
Great. So, obviously the town clerk does vital business for the town, takes care of our vital records, and you also look after all the elections, and you have a couple of assistants. And I don't know, why don't you tell us what's facing you and what's going on, and I will bring up your budget.
Okay. So currently I operate with two full-time staff. Besides myself, there's an assistant town clerk and a senior clerical staff. We perform essential functions such as providing all deaths, births, marriage certificates for all of our residents. Recently, the state has adopted a new death module, which is online, and it's had its little challenges because you have so many different functions working with it. We have doctors, we have hospitals, we have funeral homes. So there's a lot of collaboration, and so there's still little wrinkles and stuff. It does take quite a bit of our time right now because it is new. I hope that will level out at some point. I am concerned a little bit because of Quincy Hospital closing down, the influx in Milton Hospital with our deaths. So we will keep track of that and see how that is affecting us. Probably have better statistics next year on that.
Well, you get, let's hope your business isn't affected too.
Yes, I hope not.
By a higher mortality rate in town. But.
Well, it's not just in-town residents, it's anybody who dies at the hospital, so.
Right. And, I guess that's part of the business of hospitals.
Unfortunately,
Let's hope it's not a growth business for you.
yes.
So, I guess, I don't know if anybody else has any questions right off the bat, but why don't we take a quick walk through your budget here. And this, I apologize, this is a PDF, so it's not going to show well on the screen once we get to your general expense sheet. But at any rate, so level service, you're looking for $264,000 as opposed to keeping things roughly the same as they were last year, 258. So one of the things we want to do this year is focus on what it is you're asking that's different than last year. And since you're not looking to hire somebody or fire somebody, and your salary and wage line is steady, then obviously that we'll be looking at your general expenses. But the first thing that I want to identify is this year, for the first year, we decided that we wanted to protect people's contracts. And you're showing a contract but I'm not sure what it is.
Okay.
So maybe you can tell us what the contract is that we're protecting,
Okay, so I have a copier machine.
okay?
I also have contracts for the election equipment. So, and I have a small contract for our timestamp machines.
Okay, great. So we'll see those in detail later on, I think, on your Schedule E of expenses. Okay. I just want to point out here, encumbered from the prior year for 14. I don't know if anybody can see this. Well, encumbered from the prior year was $2,900, and you ended up with a reserve fund transfer also in 2014 for $1,000. And I don't know, you could remind me what that was for.
That was for an additional costs for an election.
Right. So that kind of pumped your budget up a little bit for 14, your actual budget for what you could spend money on, even though the encumbered amount you'd already committed to what your expense on that would be. So it's a little, in your narrative, it's a little disingenuous to say, oh, and now you're not giving me the same as what you gave me in 14, because some of what you got in 14 was from 13 through the encumbrance and the RFT, of course. Last year for 15, I think we did a pretty good job. You were looking for about 6,000 above level dollar, and we were able to give it to you. And part of that, I believe, was for courses and things like that, and I presume therefore that you are involved in these things.
Yes.
Yeah.
So what we did last year, for the members that weren't present, is prior years, there were different line items that didn't really depict what was going on in the clerk's office. So in order to streamline it, make it a little bit more easy to understand, we broke things out. So therefore, if you look at the line items now, the professional services is now no longer a line item. That line was being used for elections, so we did create a new line item that's called E&R expenses. So any costs that occurred for elections come out of that line item.
Okay, again, I apologize for the way the PDF shows up. The line item is down here, it's E&R expenses. It's showing a 0 in the past, and it's now, and it clocks in for fiscal year 2015 at $19,645. This was a great leap forward for rationalizing the operations of the town clerk, I think.
I think it makes it,
Because,
for my,
because you're also responsible for the elections in town. The selectmen have a budget called election and registration, and there are still some expenses there. They're mostly labor, and I guess they're mostly there because the selectmen choose appoint the electors, or the
Right,
election workers.
that's correct.
Is there any other reason that isn't entirely in your budget that you know of?
None that I know of, no. You know, I did question other clerks as to how it's handled, and they do usually have two separate accounts. It's usually managed by the clerk. However, you know, the practice here in Milton has been that this, because the selectmen appointed, also out of their E&R, the warrants are printed, so that cost is absorbed, as well as truck rental that we utilize on election days.
So so it's a good thing some of you have paper copies or laptops, because this is not doing very well here, but the line item for election and registration expenses is, I mean, it's essentially, it's a bill, okay? And maybe we should consider it as a contract, okay? But now we get into the interesting scenario where that contract actually drops, because we're moving ahead. We're in fiscal year 16, you're looking at 2 elections instead of 3. It doesn't drop by a third, but it does drop. So in
And the reason why it doesn't drop by a third is because the state and federal elections and primaries, the town absorbs much less of the cost. The state picks up for the printing of the ballots and portion of programming some of the machines. For the town election, we are responsible for all costs. And so printing of the ballots, depending upon how many candidates you have, based on the population expected turnout, those numbers can fluctuate from year to year.
So in the past, all these costs were just buried in the different categories. Now they're segregated into election and registration costs, and we see that they're coming down. So if it was a contract that was coming down, we'd say, hooray, life is getting cheaper, and aren't we glad we protected something that was going down? Well, we didn't specify that this particular item would be deemed a contract. It is a collection of expenses, and it does vary. But it has gone down, so Susan rightfully said, oh, wow, here's an opportunity for, since you're asking me to keep my general expenses level, and this is in my general expenses, well, now I've got $3,000 to spend on something else, because it is coming down from fiscal year 15, 19 grand to fiscal year 16 grand. So I understand. So basically, if you can look at the bottom of the screen, in fiscal year 15, $36,000 was appropriated for general expenses, and for level service, Susan is looking for 41, even though the election and registration line is dropped by 3. So that's a boost of the 8, and so you go, okay, what's going on with the 8? And primarily, or 5,900 of that is sitting in the top line, advertising. And advertising is I guess it's a curious outgrowth of.
From 100 to this, and it's glaring, I know. And
You want to tell us about it?
sure.
Great.
So the reason why the significant increase is, part of the requirements anytime a bylaw is passed is, once it passes a town meeting, I submit it to the Attorney General's office. Once it meets the approval of the Attorney General's office, I am required to publicize that in its entirety. As we all know, the zoning articles can be quite lengthy.
Can be what?
Quite lengthy.
Lengthy.
Oh, lengthy.
Yes.
And therefore costly to publish.
I get it.
So, this year, I happened to encounter one of the articles. It was for Thayer, and it took up 3 pages in the Milton Time. And it had to be published for 2 weeks. I did not have the funds to pay for it. Fortunately, the Selectman's office was able to help me out that one time. That 5,900 is pretty much a guesstimate, because I don't know how lengthy one article from the next. I don't know how many articles will be approved. I thought to put nothing there and then come in for RFTs for the future, that's not and maybe that is the method in which you would deem is appropriate. I just wanted to make sure that it was brought to your attention, and so although I put 6,000 down there, that's really an arbitrary number because of the unknown.
Phil, please.
Susan, does the law state that you have to publish the entire article that's in the
Well-
warrant, even though the article and the recommendation may be exactly the same in their language?
Well, I talked to John Flynn because that was my concern as well. And after speaking with him at length today, he would be in agreement that I could just post the recommendations going forward.
It should be cheaper, obviously.
It will,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
And so I'm hoping. There are other methods that have been used by the former town clerk, and they can be, a booklet can be created, and it could be sent out to all residents of the town. Again, that would be very costly for every town meeting. I would have to look at the costs to see which would be more cost-effective, obviously. The other one is to, again, produce a booklet and put it in one or two locations within the 10 precincts. Given the controversial nature of a lot of our articles, I would hate to subject the town to any lawsuits that somebody did not see it. And, you know, in speaking with John Flynn, the town attorney, both him and I felt that we are of the time that it does have to be publicized.
Steve?
So is this a case where the law is not keeping up with technology? Because you could think that you could use the
With
town
the
website
website,
or
I
even the cable
agree.
TV to just
I agree
roll it.
to have it, and right now, it's not. I'm hoping, you know, now that open meeting law, we're able to use the websites, I'm hoping that we will get to that point. It's not there yet, and certainly as soon as it is, that will be the method of choice.
Darnell?
Yeah, well, mine goes on the side of with the website, because I think the website would be, it's more available and a lot more, you know, consistently available than a copy of the Milton Times in
I-
today's day and age. I mean, you know, just if you look straight out at technology and things of that nature. And I was wondering if it'd be a posting in the Milton Times making reference back to the website. So you have,
I did ask
Summary,
John Flynn
a
if we
summary,
could
and
just
then
say it would be, and just give a
summary and then
general.
full verse.
Because the
and-
planning board does do that when they are posting the meetings. Unfortunately, the interpretation of the law does not allow us to do that in this case. Hopefully, it'll come to pass, but at this point, it's not there.
I got Paul and then Lee Michael.
Susan, is there any rumblings that this law that there's interest in changing this law to keep it up with technology, or is there still zero? So is the town?
As far as I know, there's zero. I am attending a conference in first week of February, and one of the seminars that I am going is on posting with the Attorney General's in the requirements. So I'm hoping that I'll have more information at that time.
But for the time being, these publishing costs will be regularly incurred by the town for
Right,
the
and-
foreseeable future.
Right.
Okay.
And for this year alone, we have 6 that just were approved from the May, and I submitted another 7 from the October. So I don't know how much it will cost. But you will know as soon as I do.
Right. Lee Michael?
Are you currently posting the full text on the website anyway?
I am not,
Okay.
no.
My recommendation would be to do that, because since you said that your concern is making sure that the town isn't open to future lawsuits and that all the citizens know, some of them are more comfortable going to the website instead of Milton Times anyway, so I think it would be good to be doing it in both places.
I agree.
And then someday when Milton Times can drop off or just be an abbreviation, you'll already have that process in place.
I agree. I think that's a great suggestion, and I definitely will do it.
Thanks.
So perhaps you could tell us how much it costs to publish those ads?
Well, for the 3 pages, it was $2,400 for the 2 weeks.
Okay.
And that was one article. Granted, now,
Well, that was a fairly lengthy article.
it was.
But it's not longer than, say, for instance, the citizens petition that will be in the May warrant for condominium development. And who knows if that'll pass? It's unforeseeable. So in a way, since it's unforeseeable, you could appeal to the warrant committee for a reserve fund transfer. Because we don't know if it's gonna, if these lengthy articles will pass or if they won't. Sometimes they get shot down at town meeting or referred back to the planning board. So it is unforeseeable, but I'm really glad you brought this to our attention because you could have a $6,000 expense out of the blue. Or not out of the blue, but twice a year. And obviously for 16, the remaining, if we pass an article at town meeting, the Attorney General won't get it back to us until 16.
Correct.
So that would properly be there, at least cover the first $2,400. So we might, I'm sure we'll look at that. So can you tell me, I should look at my own paper copy because it's difficult to see what's going on here. The line you have going from 9,000 to 10,000 is...
Town census.
Again, that is a requirement mandated by state, that every resident, or every household receives a census. That's how we keep our records up to date. It's how citizens prove their residency. So it is an important function, and it is required by law.
Right, so this is the envelope we get every year.
Yes.
And this is the cost of the form and the postage
Form,
and
the
everything involved in
postage,
that.
we're required to
exercise.
print books, and send out cards to those that are saying they no longer are residents to the,
Mhm.
in the town.
Great. Phil?
Susan, the information from that town census is what goes into what we lovingly call the nosy book,
Yes.
isn't it? Now, you sell those, right?
That's correct.
What's the current price of one?
$15 per book.
And do you know how many you sell per year?
Well, the price of it, the amount had been going down. Prior years, it was a hot ticket item.
Yeah.
So we were purchasing like 500, and we were going right through them. Now, they're not as, people aren't as interested.
Mhm.
They can get them online if they ask me. I don't publish it on our website, but if they ask, I will email it to them.
Have you ever thought of establishing a revolving fund
No,
for
I have
that,
not.
where you would use the funds from your sale of the nosy book to cover the cost of your town census?
I hadn't thought of that, no.
Okay. Could you let us know what we've sold in the most recent
Absolutely,
year?
I can give you.
Yeah, 'cause
I
it might
can
be worth
tell
you
this-
doing that.
Sure.
Yeah.
Steve?
Let you finish writing, Susan.
Thank you.
But since Phil cracked it open, revenues,
Yes.
your office is able to collect revenues for different permits and licenses and things like that.
Right.
And we didn't ask for a spelling out of it particularly. The question I have is, now that you've been in your office for a few years, have you been able to, or would you be able to do an analysis that would look at the fee and permit costs to see if they are consistent with, the labor that's required for your staff to put into them? Because that's generally considered to be a fair level for a permit. And some, technologies might have saved you a lot of time so that you're able to issue them more inexpensively, and in other cases, there may be a lot more work involved than is accounted for in the current fees. As, it is a fee-based service, some of what you do, and so to make sure that, the cost of those issuances or whatever it is covered by the permit fee schedule that you've got.
Right, since I've taken office, I have not altered the fee schedule or anything, and that is something that I am looking at and hope to have a better analysis by the end of May. And I certainly will, as soon as I get it, share it with everybody.
Okay. Does anybody have any further questions for Susan? Well, I guess you're off the hook.
Well, I do have a bit of bad news, too.
Right,
For
right.
the fiscal year 17. There has been changes to the election law, and that will impact my office significantly. On a good note, early voting has been established, so residents now will be able to vote for no reason. Currently, you have to have a reason in order to absentee vote. So the impact, I would imagine, will double the workload in my office. It will take effect with the presidential election, given that that's usually like an 86% turnout. And with the absentee ballots and the staff that I currently have, we worked around the clock. So I can only imagine that with having early voting, that there will be an increase in that. Now, the procedures on how that is to fall out, it hasn't been established by the Secretary of State. I know there are certain requirements as to the hours that were open. There had been talk that originally that we would have to have a clerk and a warden at each of the 10 locations for 11 days, but that's not happening, thank goodness. Whether or not we will have to have a clerk and a warden housed in our office during that time, that's yet to be remained. So I won't have that information. There is a task force studying all of that and setting up, trying to see what the impacts will be, whether the state will be giving us any funding to help offset some of the costs. I don't anticipate having any of that information until August of 2016, when the election is in November of 2016. So even though I'm hoping that there might be some more information than I have now, at least by the next budget session, I do think it's important that I at least give the committee a heads up that that is coming, what that means to. At this point, I really can't give you a concrete, anything that I'd say would be a guesstimate.
Well, it's nice to know
Yeah.
that it's coming, along with
Yes.
other things. It might be one more reason for an override. So, yeah, no, it's difficult to say. I mean, obviously, if you have to have a lot more manpower over a lengthy period of time, you're going to be looking at a lot of seasonal, a lot of overtime.
Right.
Right now, your overtime is $2,500 a year. A couple of years ago, it was $2,000.
Right.
And it seemed to be predicated on how many elections you had. So, should it go down this year?
It could.
Perhaps you can
Certainly, they
turn it
would
back.
not be abusing it or anything. Anytime the staff has to work late, it's certainly isn't an abuse. There's more than enough work outside of elections
Right.
for my staff to do.
Well, you never know if there's going to be a special election as well, so we had that recently. Okay, so we hear the pounding hooves of more expense coming down the road at us. But other than that, things are in pretty good shape. You're not aware of any problems with
I know everything I know at this
archiving
time.
things? Great, great. Glad to hear it.
Yeah.
Right. Well, thank you, Susan, for coming.
Thank you.
and
Thanks, Susan.
telling us what's up.
Thanks, Susan.
Appreciate it. Okay, so Bob, thank you for coming. We're gonna talk to Carolyn Kinsella now, from the Board of Health, and she'll be able to tell us what, her mission is for the town. I think you referred to yourself as the unseen agent, or the,
Yes. So I have some, a little bit of paperwork to pass out, just
Great.
about what the Board of Health does, what we do and why we do it.
thanks.
We do so many different things in the Board of Health. I never even realized it till I was working in the Board of Health. So I'm the health director. I'm a new health director. I started in April. This is my first time to the warrant committee. I work
It's
full-time.
easy. It's not it's a piece of cake, don't worry about it.
So I work full-time, 37.5 hours, and I have a health inspector, Nellie, who's wonderful. She does our health inspections, food and housing, and she goes to the pools and helps me with the camps during the year. And I have she only works 25 hours part-time. And I have Jean Peterson, she's our clerk, and she works part-time too. She works 21.5 hours for us in the Board of Health. And currently, we have a vacant health agent position, which is 22.5 hours, and that's been vacant for the past year.
Okay.
And we advertised for that 3 times. We're having a bit of trouble filling that position because it's just a part-time position.
So, any hope there?
So I'm going to advertise again this week, and hoping that we'll get some bites.
So, you don't have a budget big enough for doing a lot of advertising, so I imagine we're gonna see you with a small request for
We did have a
transfer.
revolving fund transfer last year to advertise for that health agent position. And we may have to come back again and ask for another transfer for that. But first, we're gonna try to put the advertisement in just the local MHOA, the local organizations, to see if we can, it's kind of specialized, the health agent, soil evaluation and sanitation, so,
Hard to find.
yes.
Kevin?
Is this a new position, Carolyn?
So it is a new position. What they did with my position, so I used to be the public health nurse, and I worked 22.5 hours as the public health nurse for 6 years. And then when Michael Blanchard left the position as health director, I became the health director and the public health nurse combined. And so that opened up the position of health agent for 22.5 hours. So I'm both the health director and I'm also the public health nurse
So
combined.
this is a part of the job that Mike used to do.
Yes.
What does this job entail, just generally?
So housing complaints and septic and probably housing and whatever they can bring. We'll cross-train them, to do food or nuisance calls, and every day is different at the Board of Health. Boarding cases, we get a
Is
lot
he
of.
out, is he out of the office, working out of the office primarily, or?
We'd like it to be 3 days, 3 days work. You can be in and out of the office, but we really need a warm body. to help us out in the office because we're so short-staffed.
Thank you.
And I also took over, Dr. Wolf retired, and I'm also the animal inspector. So I absorbed that position too. So I issue quarantines, and that's taking up some time too. Which I didn't realize that so many dogs are biting dogs and cats are biting people, and so that's another addition of what I'm doing.
So let me get this straight. You're now doing the job that 3 people were doing before.
It's been very, very challenging. I can't tell you, very challenging. Yes.
So when Michael was there, he had you and full-time.
No, I was 22.5, so I was part-time.
Oh, you were part-time?
Yep,
And
Nellie.
he had Nellie.
And then Debbie Manning retired, but she was part-time.
Okay,
Yes.
that's how it worked. So if you find this part-time health agent, you feel that you'll be able to catch back up? I mean, you must have a backlog of sort of inspections that are due and things like that.
Yes. So I'm hoping when we get the agent, that they're able to help with the septic, which is kind of in a lull right now because it's the winter time, thank God. But it'll start picking up, and people will be calling and putting in new septic systems. Yeah. And perk tests, yeah.
Okay, so you're especially hoping for someone with those qualifications, because to train somebody new would take a little time.
Yes. But we might have to look at that, training somebody new, if we can't find the right person.
Interesting. Okay. So, I mean, this is your big issue right now, obviously. And you are advertising, and maybe you'll get there. I think people maybe want to look at the overall budget picture for the Board of Health. Personnel services, even including the new position, .5 position, the personnel service line is actually under what it was for fiscal year 14. Okay, it's 179,000 as opposed to 185.
And Michael was at top step, so Michael Blanchard left and he was at top step, and I came in at the bottom step.
So the good thing about that happening was that you were able to pull a 3% transfer at the end of June
Yes.
last year, take some money out of, unused money out of salary and wages and put it into supplies. And your supply line has traditionally been $2,000. And this was this is a windfall for you in terms of being able to stock up a bit, I trust.
Yes.
But in recognition of that, or your level service request is for 3,000 as opposed to your normal 2,000, so you've recognized that you really can't get by on the 2,000. Is that, or is there a specific category?
So it is a crunch.
It is a
Crunching
category.
with
It's-
just $2,000. And also I'm taking on, as I took on the animal inspector, I'm using my car a lot of times to go out, and mileage falls under the general expenses. So that has gone up, the mileage expenses.
Okay.
And postage and, sending out flu packets and things like that. The postage goes up, and
So I'm mainly looking at training. You have $750 for training, and we don't know who that's for, but presumably that any of you might need some training in order to fulfill your functions.
yeah, so I'm a nurse and I need 15 credits every 2 years. And then Nellie is a health inspector, and to get her certifications current, she needs 24 credits every 2 years. So we are consistently going out to new trainings, there's new laws, and there's always something that we're going to, you know, increase our educational knowledge in the Board of Health and, you know, things that are new that are going on. Yeah, we do a lot of trainings in the Board of Health.
So who's paying for the, sorry, Darnell, can you, so who's paying for that training now?
So that transfer, we did, that 3% transfer.
Oh, right, you were able to
So I
sign
was
up,
able to
right,
take, yep, the test,
sign up for the training.
yes, and then I did a pool
for this
training.
year. Right.
There was a couple of trainings, and it was expensive for those trainings.
So I'm just wondering who, before that, who was paying for the trainings? Or were we just not being trained?
I think it was, you know, some of the trainings, the pool training is every 5 years.
Okay.
So I think that 5 years ago, the general expenses budget was heftier than $2,000. So I think that at that time, I think it's been consistently going down a bit to 2,000, but
Can't go down forever. Darnell?
Yeah, because also, that 750, I don't think it's gonna work, because you see you're gonna be bringing somebody new in, needing training. Where's that training coming from, and what certifications are they gonna need?
yeah, I don't know.
We're talking about they coming in now, talking about 16 is where that training is gonna have to take place to bring them up to speed.
Right.
So, for that level service, and that's what we're looking at, is level service, not level dollar here. I don't know if that number's the right number there. I might want to revisit that so that we have a better idea, understanding what the actual numbers should look like. And where is that, the animal inspector, where are they housed? Where are they usually housed in there?
So it's
Their
right from the Board
person-
of Health.
Huh?
So it's right from the Board of Health.
Right
So
through-
we have an animal control officer, that's Nancy Bersani, which she's great. She goes out if there's rabid raccoons and things like
Right,
that.
that, yeah.
But from the Board of Health, what happens is I get like faxed bite reports, comes into the Board of Health, and then I have to follow up on the bite reports.
Just in the office.
Okay.
Just to make sure, you know, the animal doesn't have rabies.
Okay, and the person who was taking care of that, probably who said retired,
He retired.
he retired, and was he a volunteer, or was his,
Dr. Wolf
What
was
was the
wonderful. He was
volunteer?
a volunteer, and he did all that pro bono for the town for years. Yes, he did have a stipend at one time. I do know that, but that was eliminated for mileage. He had a stipend, but he did it pro bono. It was wonderful.
and in your level service, I don't, where have you reflected the the mileage and stuff that you're adding to your car? And stuff that, where's that reflected in your level service here?
What page you on, I'm sorry.
I'm just asking, because I didn't see it here. Where you reflecting these things? I'm asking you, where you reflecting in your level service, because this is where you're telling us, this is what it's taking to run your office to get it.
So,
Right, not level dollar, but the level service, because I'm just asking, and the reason I'm asking is because I don't think these numbers are right for what you're trying to do in your office. And that's why I'm asking these questions the way I am. Okay, that's why. It's not, I understand you're trying to be frugal, but the picture here is just not right. That's all.
Well, last year, the actual expense for vehicle allowance was $137, and you had a $450 budget. So if you triple your mileage or triple your usage, this, in 15, you'll use it up. You'll be about right. Does that work? Do you think you might be putting in, so far this year, are you racking up miles 3 times as fast as,
I wouldn't say 3 times as fast.
okay, so you're probably okay
Yeah.
on the mileage. But the training could be another issue. And dues and membership, you had a budget of $350, and because of the transfer, you were able to spend $1,500 in that category. I take it some of those memberships are good for more than a year?
They're not.
No.
They're
I
not?
wish they were, no, they're not. So the
Okay.
yearly memberships to like MAPHN, the Public Health Nurses, MHOA, which is the Health Officers Association, and these organizations allow us to come for trainings and give credits.
Okay, because
So-
you have 850
Yeah,
in that category where you spent 1,500 the year before. So that's, unless you have some memberships that are worth a couple of years, that's worrisome. Now, that's way better than the $350 you had in fiscal year 14, originally.
Is that the 3%? Is that why it's so high?
Yep,
Yeah.
well, that's what you said you
Yeah.
spent it on.
So we did, we spent it, a lot of it on memberships, which I didn't realize, there are a lot of memberships that and whoever comes in, they'll have to get a membership too. So I didn't realize how much membership costs to
Right.
these organizations to keep current.
So the 850 you have in your level service may not be equal to that demand. Would you be able to tell us, give us a list of your memberships and their costs? I mean, not right now, but if
Yeah.
you could email that to me
Yeah.
sometime, that would be great, just so we understood what you're actually looking at for the staff you have on hand, and perhaps what you might need for your vacancy, once you fill that position. That'd be great.
So,
Okay. And now, in your narrative, you're also, you're looking for a copy machine.
I'm looking for a copy machine. I have a picture of a 14-year-old copy machine that we have, and it's broken down. Finally, the parts were too antiquated and they couldn't be replaced. And it's a Toshiba, the same copier that I think the clerk's office has, Park and Rec has, and it's the brand name that we have in the office. And John O'Leary came in and I asked him for, the best price, the state contract price, the most economical price for this copier, for $4,080.38. It comes with 36 months of free service. It comes with no toner till the 4th year. And he said it was the most economical, and it looks like, well, it's better looking than the one with 14-year-old. But, so I'm hoping that if there's money in the budget, that we can get a new Toshiba, and if we do, we'll keep it for another 15 years. And we'll have to come back again and ask.
I don't know, they might not make them like this anymore, I don't know.
Thank you.
So you do a lot of copying then?
So we do copying, and if we have bigger projects, Jean runs upstairs and runs copies upstairs, and scanning too. If there's a lot of pages, we'll go upstairs and scan them, yep.
Hey, Michael?
Did you say that if you were to get the new copier, you'd have 3 years of toner included?
Yeah,
No,
no toner
maintenance.
till the 4th year, so I guess 3 years of toner. Yeah,
Okay.
3 free toner, yep.
So your narrative, to me, I thought that meant 3 cartridges, but you mean 3 years.
Yeah, I think 3 years is no toner till the 4th year. So
Okay.
it must be 3 years
So-
of toners.
It'd be interesting to know how much you spend per year on toner, because there would be a reduction in some budget somewhere, right? You wouldn't have to buy toner anymore, you're presumably paying for toner now?
We have another machine too. We have more than one machine in
Okay,
the office, yeah.
but you're paying for toner for the machine that keeps breaking down, and you wouldn't need to put toner in it anymore for
That's-
3 years, right?
That machine's been broken for about 8 months,
Okay, so there wouldn't be a reduction in toner then?
right? Yeah,
This is not printing.
yeah,
Although,
one that's,
what would prevent you from stopping to use the other machine and just running all of your copies through the new, hopefully more high-efficient machine that has included toner in the price?
oh, I'm sorry, I don't understand the question.
If you have 2 machines and you're printing on one of them right now and you're paying for the toner for it, and you're gonna get a new, let's say you were appropriated money to get a new machine, and the price for toner was included on that machine, couldn't you stop making copies on the one that's costing you money and just make the copies on the one that has toner included?
Yeah, we could do that and save some money.
Toner is just really expensive, so I'm
It is
wondering
very
if you could
expensive,
look at how
right.
much it costs you to, in
Yeah,
toner
we
right
could-
now.
We
And
could
I'm wondering if
swap
they
it,
can make
yeah.
copies for every department in town.
Okay, hang on just a second. I just want to refer back to your actual narrative and what you wrote, okay? Because it says this includes 36 months of free service, which is great, and 3 toner cartridges. Sort of a, and when I read that, I thought, okay, that's the initial purchase package, and that'll get you through. I have no idea how many toner cartridges you might use in a year, but I don't think, I think that's 3, not free.
Right.
Right, but she said it differently than what it's written.
Okay.
3 toner cartridges.
Hmm.
So I
No,
have here
it's-
on my notes, 3 free toners, no I won't need toners till the 4th year.
So one toner
No,
cartridge
one
does
toner
you
a
a
year?
year? I'd be surprised. Darnell maybe can shed some
Yeah,
light
actually,
on
used to
this.
sell these things, but, no, actually, it's according with the contract you have. You probably, if you have a service contract on top of your system, and I'm not sure, that's what you have to check. Certain service contracts will basically, in the service contract, award you a certain amount of copies, and that's how they include your toner in that service contract. So if you're rated for X amount of copies on that copier, as long as you don't exceed that, your toner is included. But if you go significantly over that, you build a surcharge on those copies.
And it might be based on 8 months of downtime.
No, but that's how a lot of the contracts are written. So it's based on the number of copies that you're rated for. So they're not just giving it away, so we can't print them up for the whole town.
Oh.
Nice idea, but they're not in business for no reason. So I would check with them about that and make sure it's not just 3 free toner cartridges. But I would check the wording of those contracts because that is a very big difference in the expense line to an office or an organization, how that contract is written. Because if it's written in there that you have a certain number of copies and it's covered, your tone is covered under those, really nice deal. If it's 3 free toner cartridges, you got a big bill coming. So that's a big difference in the wording there. So we want to make sure you know what the wording is on that contract. So you definitely know how it's gonna affect and how it's gonna hit your budget. Just so you have an idea.
Phil?
Since we're considering this for a possible expenditure over and above what you're asking for in your budget, what's the reason that you have 2 copiers? Is one a backup to the other? Is one do certain things that the other can't do?
So this is more, of a copier, like a high-speed copier, and also for scanning. And the one we have now doesn't scan. So this, now with technology, I'm scanning more things than I ever have this last 2 or 3 years. And even yesterday, I was scanning like a contract to somebody. And Jean has to go upstairs, and there was just too many pages in it. And so it does more than just print. It
So you
scans.
prefer to store these electronically rather than in a hard copy? Okay.
So, we don't really want to finance redundancy. You say you have to go upstairs. Can you just go upstairs if you need high-speed scanning services?
Yeah, we can go upstairs.
So I guess it comes down to, do you really need this copier? If you can go upstairs. If that's a shared, if you can share resources like that, the copier upstairs.
We could go upstairs. I know Jean goes upstairs. When she goes upstairs, she has to lock the door and go upstairs, and, because there's no one else in the office a lot of times. And she does go upstairs and locks the door. So can it be done? Yes. Is it saving more time if it would be in the office? Yes. But we could just step over there and scan it instead of going up and down the stairs. But, I mean, do we absolutely need it 100%?
I mean,
No,
I
we
don't
go
know how
upstairs.
often you need to use that, a high-speed scanning machine as opposed to the copier you have in your office that is working. I got Darnell and then Steve.
Which department are you going into to do your copying and scanning now?
It's like on the main floor, the second floor. It's building, yeah. Without,
So I'm wondering which office is that hitting for their expense liners and stuff, so, 99 of it, so, if you can get, I would appreciate if we could get the numbers, for the, copier and the right numbers and stuff, and figure out what that is, because, the cost of maintaining and playing around with a bad copier exceeds the cost of having a good new copier a lot of times, just to let y'all know about that as well. So we can, say, oh, keeping the old one is great, but the tonal costs and all that stuff up front is a lot more expensive sometimes than just go ahead and just having a new copy.
Steve?
Yeah, so getting the parts for the old one is insane, the 14-year-old. How old is the other copier? And if it's several years old, is it near to the end of its life too, and you could just get this one new one and have it do everything that you need?
it's several years old, but it's not as old as this other one, yeah.
Things just don't last.
Right.
Electronics don't last 14 years, so, but yeah, if the other one's 5 or 6 years old and you're gonna run into the same things and maybe even more quickly because the stuff is just replaceable now, so. If we're talking that, okay, so you don't get this one, you're gonna use the old one, and then that breaks down in 3 months, then we're right back where we didn't need to be. So if that's, if you could get us some condition on that thing, it may make more sense to have the one new that can do the high speed and the scanning and everything else.
Mike?
I got two questions, actually. First of all, do you have any statistics on the counts of the activities, the services you're providing? Like how many hospital Milton Hospital's a big place, and there's a restaurant there, and you're responsible for making sure that's safe, I guess, right?
Yeah, so in our annual report, we do how many inspections, and yes, I don't have it in front of me now, but I know that Nellie goes, I think, 2 or 3 times a year, and if there's problems, then she'll go back and inspect more. If there's issues with any certain establishment, she'll go more. She goes into the schools to check the food safety.
I mean, I wouldn't expect you to do what this outfit did as far as handing out like statistics, but they explained counts of like how much, what they were offering, what the services were, so you could see what the money was going for. Like with the copies, it's like, geez, how many copies do you need? Maybe you need a lot of copies, and if you just said, I'm printing 10,000 pages or whatever the count is, we could say, geez, you need.
I think if flu season is the busiest,
Yeah.
we are copying the flu fact sheets and the paperwork to, get all that flu covered. So, I mean.
So there's an annual report where you have the other stuff.
Mike,
Yeah.
It's in the town reports.
Right.
The town reports, okay.
So we
The
give.
second thing I want to ask was this, it says here on your green sheet, you've, $2,126,523 has been received in grants for emergency preparedness.
Emergency preparedness, yes. Yeah, so today I was at an emergency preparedness meeting, and so it's, 4B is the 28 communities surrounding Milton, and they receive about 500,000 a year. And we go to monthly meetings, and it's about emergency preparedness and preparing the Region 4B for any kind of emergencies. So it's their money, but
It's their money.
Oh, it's their
That's what I
money.
was gonna say.
it's not our money.
If I had $2 million,
Yeah.
I might buy a copier, and-
It's their money.
okay.
So, one of the things you want to do is increase your withdrawal limit on the revolving fund you have from 10,000 to 12,000. And I'm looking at that and wondering if you'll ever scrape the bottom of the barrel with only increasing it to 12,000. Because right now, in your vaccinations revolving fund, you started out the year with 20,000, and you took in 12 and you expended 6, and now you've got 27,000 in there. And if you can only take out, first of all, you didn't take out the 10,000 you were allowed to last year. And I don't know, maybe you can remind me if there's a stricture on the reasons you can take it out. But you didn't take out the full 10.
You're right.
So that builds up your I don't know, basement of inaccessible funds higher.
What happened last year is we have $10,000 to expend, and we had a payment that was supposed to be paid for Sanofi for our vaccines. And I thought it was paid, and it was signed by Roxanne, our chairman, and it got lost in the shuffle. So at the end of the year, June 30th, I found it, and I was like, it was too late to submit it. So it was it was over $3,000, maybe close to $4,000. And it should have gone in, and it didn't. It got rolled over. So this year, I'm going to work more closely with Amy Dexter to make sure that we use, the money. So that bill wasn't paid, and we had to pay it this year.
Right, because also, I mean, I'm happy if you make money, but I don't think you're really supposed to be making money on the vaccinations. So looking at the revenue of 12 and the expense of 6 just kind of looked odd.
Yeah.
So most of it is that missed payment.
Yes.
But even if you change your withdrawal limit to 12, and you proceed along on a sort of a 12,000 a year volume,
I see. It's not going to decrease it. Yeah.
You'll never be able to decrease the balance. And I'm just wondering if there's something that revolving account would be authorized to spend money on, like a copy machine. If we expanded the withdrawal limit on that account, you just reach down in there and pull out a copy machine one time. You wouldn't always have to reach down $18,000 or whatever it is, but you could do that once. I mean, I kind of like that idea, because otherwise you just have the money sitting down there and you never get it out unless either your revenue declines, and you're giving away vaccinations, or anyway. So I think we ought to look at the idea of changing your withdrawal limit to a sufficient level where you can actually get to the bottom of your funds there, and we ought to see if check with your board, but I think probably you can use it for a copy machine, my guess. So, Lee Michael.
I have a question for each of you.
Sure.
For you, was on that vaccinations revolving fund, do you happen to know if the money that gets put in there is earmarked specifically for vaccinations, or it can be used for other things, or is this just a question for the board?
That's what I don't know.
Okay.
So it is only for vaccinations and nursing supplies and health-related programs. Yeah.
I could imagine how a copier could be related to that, but yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that would be good to ask the board. That's an interesting idea, Ted. And then, secondly, on the vaccines, do you happen to know what your wastage on vaccines is, and how much you get to use effectively versus how many you buy?
So all the vaccines I bought, I used. I did get some state vaccine, and I have about 40 doses left. But I usually use almost all of the vaccine, and at the end, when there's some left, I'll reach out to all the pediatricians and find out if they need any, and they didn't.
Great. That's
So,
fantastic. Good.
Yeah.
Thanks.
So.
I'm still giving it out if anybody wants vaccine. I am.
You could
Even,
have brought it tonight.
Yeah, even last week even I get people walking in, and so in the end.
You
yeah.
gave me my vaccine, and there was flu in my house, and I didn't get it.
Well, I do think that $20,000 in your revolving fund is a challenge for your board to figure out, what you're going to do with it in the future, whether or not you're going to start not charging for vaccinations or what you want to do. But it's an asset, and it ought to be recognized and used. So maybe you can get back to us with what your board's thoughts are on that.
Yeah.
Be great. Any other questions for Carolyn? Oh, Jean.
I just wanted to say that I'm a big proponent of giving people the tools they need to do the jobs. And I don't think running around dealing with repairmen and waiting for them to show up and waiting till they're finished and keeping your door locked so that you can go upstairs and use someone else's coffee is good for the town. I think we're paying you to do what you're supposed to do. I think we're paying you for training and so that you can be at the top of your profession. And I think that we diminish that when we make you run around and be a repairman.
Thank you, Jean. That's well said. Does anybody have another question for Carolyn? No? Well, good luck. I'm sure we'll be hearing from you about advertising costs, and it would be good to hear from your board what your intentions are on that.